additional in selecting the search assignment. What kind of an offer will they extend? Will they extend a fair offer? I won't say that to be a Class A search assignment, there must be a good increase built in. There are circumstances where the opportunity, the potential, the firm is so exceptional, it could be a lateral move, no increase, and still be a Class A. But I think we'll all agree that most of the time, if it is to be a Class A, there better be an increase built in. Most of the time. Everybody agree with that? Well, now you can once again find this out in one of two ways. You can send out candidate and candidate and candidate and candidate and candidate and then get your offer. A quick 1.2% increase. Congratulations. And get a turn down. And then send out candidate and candidate and candidate and candidate and then get an offer. A quick 1.4% increase. Wonderful, you're making progress. I mean, another 47 candidates and you might be to acceptable offer. All right, but look at what you've paid to find that information out, because you can figure it's a pretty cheap company after a couple of bad offers in a row. But what's the price? Wouldn't it be nicer if you could find out what the offer is going to be when you got the search assignment? Get the information without paying the price? That's an ideal solution, isn't it? You can do that. You can, with the dollar increase script. Now watch how this flows from the difference between recruit and unemployed. This is the first step, and if you need the Socratic rebuttal, if you need the your firm rebuttal, you must make it clear to this person why the candidate you're going to send will be different than the unemployed or unhappy person he got from a newspaper ad or optional insertion, your choice, or from an employment agency. If you can't get that through to him, you can say, what kind of an offer will you extend all you want? And what he's thinking is, what kind of offer did I extend to the last person? You must make it clear we're not talking apples for apples anymore. We're talking grapes to watermelons. There is a difference. From difference between recruit and unemployed to the grass is greener script. And from there to the dollar increase script. Let's see how this goes. End of the grass is greener script, assuming we find that kind of a highly qualified person, Bruce. Are you prepared to do that kind of a selling job? Answer, don't worry, you find me the person, I'll do the selling job. Fine. Dollar increase. Also, of course, Diane, a recruited candidate is not going to make a lateral move. Note the assumed close. He's not desperate, she's not unhappy. She's probably doing pretty well where she is. Now, example. For our purposes, let's assume that the salary range is $30,000 to $40,000. It would work anywhere, but I'd like to use a real number, so we'll say the range is $30,000 to $40,000. If we found an exceptionally qualified person, strong record of accomplishment and achievement, we recruited him. You interviewed her. You wanted to hire her, Tom. And she was currently earning $30,000 a year, bottom end of salary range. What type of an offer, Dave, might you extend to that individual? Question mark, pause. Everybody follow that. Now let me explain why we use the bottom end of the range. There is a school of thought, and there's nothing wrong with it, a technique called testing the high side. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't want the two to be confused. Testing the high side of the salary range refers to, example, $30,000 to $40,000 range. If we found an excellent person currently earning $40,000, what type of an offer might you extend to that person? And maybe you'll get an answer of 41, 42, 43. Nothing wrong with that, you should do it, but that's not the focus of what we're asking here. What we want to do is hit the bottom end of the range. If we found an exceptional candidate, strong record of accomplishment and achievement, we recruited her, you interviewed her, you liked her, you wanted to hire her, and she was currently earning, bottom end of range, $30,000 a year. What type of an offer, Bernie, might you extend to that individual? Now again, you're going to get three answers. Good, bad, or somewhere in the middle. If it's a good answer, oh gee, 30,000, Steve, strong record of accomplishment, achievement, that kind of person, we'd extend an offer of, oh, 35,000. I would perceive that to be a good answer. The rule of thumb is when it's good, pull it away. Don't say, Eureka, that's great. What you say is, all right, Mary, I'd say that if you can merchandise the growth, the opportunity, the potential for advancement, I'd say you would have a good chance of securing the right person at those dollars. Hear the pull away. Hear the pull away? If it's bad, strong record of accomplishment, achievement, currently earning $30,000. Now that kind of person, we might go as high as maybe $30,500. That high? Listen, we're big spenders. That's no good. That's no good. If that's the case, we have to switch to a closed-end question. In our experience, Kim, to get a happily employed person, certainly an individual with a strong record of accomplishment, to make a move, we're typically talking, I will use 15 to 20%. We're typically talking a 15 to 20% increase. That means at 30,000, we'd be talking 35, maybe 36. For the right person, Jeannie, would that pose a problem? Question mark, pause. See what he's got to say. Some people will say, no, we could handle that. Good. Others will say, no, the most we could go is 31,000. Okay. What are you going to do under those circumstances? Now, once again, it is possible that with a bad offer, it could yet be a Class A search if there were exceptional growth and so forth, but I think we'll all agree that that is the minority of the circumstances. Probably what we're dealing with here is a Class B search assignment. Probably. Is that reasonable? Well, what do you do with a Class B search? Logically, you complete the search assignment, and what I will do is this. I will remember, a B, you simply go through the files, pull out the candidates that are qualified, because you do work the Bs, call them up, present the opportunity in as favorable a manner as you can. Remember, it is a good opportunity. Present it in as favorable a manner as you can, and at the end of the presentation, simply lay it out. However, Ken, initially, should an offer be extended, a position is only worth a certain amount. For openers, simply for openers, we'd probably be talking a lateral move, maybe a small increase. Later on, there's plenty of room for upward mobility, but initially, probably lateral, maybe a small increase. What I want to know is, if everything else is right, Pam, would that pose a problem? Question mark, pause. Surprisingly, most of them will say, well, no. They won't ask me to take a cut, will they? No, they won't ask you to take a cut, but if an offer is extended, lots of room for upward growth, but for openers, maybe lateral, perhaps a small increase. Would that pose a problem if everything else is all right? Most of them will say, no, I could handle that. I could deal with that. Well, terrific. Good golly. Send them out. Send them out. They're qualified. Send them out. What you won't get is a turn down due to dollars. They knew what the dollars would be when you went out there. And should an offer be extended, your chances of an acceptance are pretty good, and they won't turn it down as a result of dollars. The other direction they'll go is to say, well, no, I wouldn't take it for less than. All right. I know there's a school of thought that says, when in doubt, send him out. Rhymes, sounds neat. I'm not sure that that's true. I like first interviews or send-outs as much as you do, but what I also like, even better, is acceptances. To me, if I have presented it in that manner and he says, no, I won't take it for less than, what's going to happen? So you sent him out. The client would do what they said they'd do, extend a poor offer. The candidate will do what he said he'd do. He'll turn it down. I don't think you need that. Maybe the thing to do under those circumstances is not to send him out. Everybody follow me on this, okay? Better to know than not to know. Far, far better to know than not to know. Now, your choice. You can send candidates out and get bad offers and turn downs or turn downs. Or you can find out when you get the search assignment. Your choice. Now, let me explain what most people are thinking bluntly at this time. What they're thinking is, wait a minute, look. Steve, I've been in this business for 26 years, and maybe they give 15 to 20% increases in St. Louis, Missouri, where you're from. But I have news. They don't give 15 to 20% increases in this market. I mean, I've never seen a 15 to 20% increase. Not a chance. So I won't be able to think work on, will I? Everybody follow that thought process? There are two answers to it. Let me give it to you. One is straightforwardly, and the other is philosophically. Straightforwardly, I understand what you're thinking, or perhaps what you're thinking, and the answer is this. If you haven't been setting it up, and I don't think you have, with difference between best of the unemployed, best of the unhappy, dregs of the universe, don't say that, that's the thought process, all right, versus winner, accomplisher, high achiever, you haven't stretched it out right. You haven't explained to him why he must handle this candidate differently than other candidates, and if you don't do that, you don't have a chance of getting a good offer, because what you're saying is, what offer have you been extending to everybody else? If you haven't been setting it up, as I've suggested, you don't know what kind of results you're going to be getting. Second answer, a little more philosophically. This is our famous bell curve. Now, you may have seen it on my video program, an earlier video entitled Book More Business. We're going to present it a little differently, a lot differently than it was on Book More Business. You can put anything you want on a bell curve. You could let this represent the income level of people in the United States. If you went to every person in the U.S. and said, what are you currently earning? It would fall on a bell curve somewhere. You could let this represent the IQ level of people in the continent of Africa. I mean, if you found out everybody's IQ level in Africa or the United States, doesn't make any difference. They'd all go on that bell curve somewhere. You could let this represent the attractiveness level of members of the opposite sex. I mean, we all have our taste, but clearly if you were to say, they'd all be on that bell curve somewhere. That's almost a universal curve. Everybody follow that thought process. For the moment, let's let this bell curve represent the percentage of increases companies will give if you set it up right, with difference between recruit and unemployed, if necessary Socratic rebuttal, if necessary your firm rebuttal, to the grass is greener script, to the dollar increase script. Everybody follow that. Let me tell you what you'd find. A bell curve. A bell curve. Don't you think that if you went to some companies and said exactly what I've suggested earlier, some of them would say, well, wait a minute. Now see here, Bob, you can talk all you want about how they're not actively looking to make a change, winner, accomplisher, high achiever, but you know, this guy's talking to me. I mean, there's a reason for it. He's earning $30,000. We'd shoot him an offer of 29 and see what he had to say. Would there be companies out there that would say that? Sure there would. Wouldn't there be companies out there that would say, now, wait a minute, you can say winner, accomplisher, high achiever, you can say, you know, I got extended increase, but you know, what's he doing in my office if he's all that happy? Come on, we'd shoot him an offer of 30 and see what he had to say. Some would say that, wouldn't they? You know they would. Some would say 31, 32, maybe 33. Question, can you have a bottom end of a bell curve and not a top? Is that a bell curve? Not a bell curve. If there's a bottom part to the bell curve, and you know there is a bottom part to the bell curve, by definition, there are also going to be companies that will fall on the top end of that bell curve. There are companies that will say 34, 35, 36. And you'll have people at extremes, just as you find someone on one extreme that'll say 30,000, you know, we'd shoot him an offer of 26 and see what he had to say. Come on, there's some strange people out there that will say that. To that degree, there are also companies that will say 30,000, gee whiz, strong record of accomplishment and achievement, will extend an offer of 38 or 39. Admittedly, way on one end of the bell curve, just as the other one is. They will fall on that bell curve, and you know that's true. You can't have a bottom without a top. My best advice is take from these people for these people. Does that make sense? We are not Robin Hood. We do not take from the rich and give to the poor. No good. Of course not. Terrible thing. We take from the poor and we give to the rich because they're the ones that deserve it.
Steve, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I think this is excellent technology. My only concern is what happens when everyone else starts using the same material and that you have here in your technology?
Okay, that's a good question, and I think it really revolves around perhaps a misunderstanding of, bluntly, our industry and of how this video product is going to sell. A guy named Ken Cole, who some of you may well be familiar with. Ken Cole was a very successful search consultant, once upon a time specializing in packaging. Later on, he came out with a newsletter called the Recruiting and Search Report, and he is the author of a book called The Headhunter Strategy. Pretty good pretty good book, by the way. Told me a long time ago, and I shall be very blunt, the longer he was in this business, the greater his respect for the top 10% of our industry, and the less his respect for the bottom 90% of our industry. Now, I might quibble with those percentages. I might say, Ken, that's wrong. It ought to be 15 and 85. It might be 20 and 80. It ought to be 30 and 70. I might quibble with that. But I think that his thought process is pretty good. Don't be under the impression that everybody is going to buy this video product. That's just plain not true. What you'll find is maybe 10% of our industry is going to buy this video product. And they will be the top 10%. They'll be the people that are committed to their people, that rather than add more people and have turnover and turnover, choose to develop and train what they've got. They will be the top 10% of our industry. The bottom 90% won't buy this product. They'll try to steal it from you. And that's the truth of the matter. You watch them. They'll be coming to you and saying, can I borrow this? They'll try to put it into some kind of a lending library. Given that this is good material, and I guarantee you it is excellent material that will work for you, you now have a competitive advantage. You do. Don't think everybody's going to be using this material. That's not true. Not everybody's going to be buying this product. About 10% of the industry will buy it. The others will try to steal it from you. And that's the truth of the matter. If when someone says to you, Bernie, I know you got Steve Finkel's video, how about loaning it to me? You say, hey, no problem. I have news. I don't lose. I'll still be doing my in-house training. I cover a lot of different material in this in my in-house training. You will lose. You will lose. And even if you say, wait a minute, I only work the data processing industry. This person that wants to borrow it works office support. Do I care? Come on. Every firm, or many firms, have a data processing desk. They've got an accounting desk. They've got a legal desk. They've got an office support desk. They've got, the more this information gets around, you're right, the less valuable it will be to you. Those people that will buy this product will not be a competitor to you. It's the bottom 90% that'll be your competitors. They won't pay for it. They'll want to steal it. And I'll tell you what you ought to do. Take a look if you're curious as to whether your firm is in the top 10% or the bottom 90%. And I'll tell you how to find that out. Look at the top of this video product. If you see my original label there, and if you know that your firm owns this video product, congratulations, you're with the best 10%. Your manager cares about you. He or she invests in you. They want you to do well. If there's no tape there, or if they don't own it, or it's from a lending library, or it's borrowed, let me ask you something. If you had a client that tried to hustle you out of the fee, how would you feel about them? You'd feel they were thieves. If that manager steals from me, he'll steal from you. And if this isn't an original video product put out by Steve Finkel, if you don't own this product but you're watching it, your manager steals from me. One day he'll steal from you. I suggest you leave and go to an ethical firm. Whether this material gets around depends an awful lot more on you than it does on me. 15th, a section that reflects a certain comment by Andrew Carnegie and also a single lady of my acquaintance, entitled Action versus Excuses. The comment from Andrew Carnegie, which was reflected by the single lady, is the older they got, the less attention they paid to what men said, and the more to what they did. Well, that has some validity from a business standpoint as well, as follows. 1, will they send company information? You should always, under all circumstances, request company information. Now, that means product information, it means annual report, whatever they might have. Do they send it? Or does 3, 4, 5 days later it doesn't arrive? Perhaps you get back to them and say, brochure, company information, product, you're going to send it to me? Son of a gun. You didn't get that? I'll send it off myself. It still doesn't arrive. Pay no attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they do. Second, do they give good company feedback? Now, this happens, of course, after the interview has gone out and they've met with the candidate. Do they tell you specifically what they like and perhaps what they don't like about that candidate? If they don't, how important is filling the position to them? Third, I will give you some help on this. Don't panic. Third, do they return phone calls? Your phone calls. Or do you call and call and call and nothing happens? If the call is not returned, What does that say about the regard in which they hold you personally? What does that say about how important this search is to them? Again, pay no attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they do. Now, let me give you a little bit of help in terms of getting back returned phone calls. The search has wound down. It is the end of the search. It's just about to be wrapped up. Try this. Look, Bob, I'll make a deal with you. This simply raises attention. Whenever I say I'll make a deal with you, you're going to say, well, what kind of deal? Tell me about this deal. Just simply focuses attention on what you're going to say next. Note, now that you have done that, you have to say something intelligent. Okay. I'll make a deal with you. What kind of deal? I won't waste your time. If you hear from me, Susan, it will be for only one of two reasons. Either I've got the person that you need to talk to, or, second possibility, I need more information to help me find the right candidate. Other than that, I simply won't waste your time. Fair enough. He'll respond with something favorable. Sounds reasonable to me. Now we go to the other side. However, if I'm going to call you, Ken, only for these two reasons, either of these reasons requires a pretty rapid response time. If I call and you're not in, I think it's indicated that you would get back to me pretty quickly. Does that pose a problem, Tom? Question mark, pause. Now you'll get one of two answers. Either don't worry, I'll get back to you fast, good, or the other option is he'll say to you, hey, Pam, I'll get back to you when I get back to you. Hey, no trouble, I'll get to your search when I get to your search. Now you might want to say that or you might not, but it's pretty clear what you're dealing with at this particular point. Now one thing I will mention, if he says to you, well, look, I'm on the road, especially in sales. I'm on the road a lot, I travel heavily, but I'm always back Monday, and I would return your call Monday morning. Do not discard this person as being uncooperative. He's not uncooperative. I don't really expect him to get back to me when he's on the road. If he says he'll get back Monday because he's on the road a lot, that's perfectly acceptable to me. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, let me make a suggestion to you. What's this got to do with us? Assume that you pick up the phone and call to present a candidate. You leave a message, he or she doesn't get back to you. Personally, 24 hours later, I will make another call because things do happen. I mean, people are out of town, messages can get lost, secretaries can foul up. I don't want to lose a good client potentially simply because of a lost message. So 24 hours later, I will make a second call. If he doesn't get back to me that time, if he doesn't get back to you that time, I suggest that you ditch him. Don't make another call. Don't make another call. If knowing that you're calling for one of two reasons, either with the right candidate or to get more information to help you find the right candidate, if knowing that he doesn't get back to you, not once, but twice, what's it tell you about how critical the search is to him? What does it tell you about how he holds you personally? Now, you don't fight against it and say, well, gee, it shouldn't be that way. Sure, it shouldn't be that way, but life is hard. It is that way. Do you honestly think that calling a third and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth time is going to enhance your odds? What kind of a posture does that put you in? Look, it's like going out on a date and you get stood up on a date. One time, who cares? I mean, the truth is things can happen. Cars can break down, people can forget, people can get busy. That's the way it goes. But twice in a row? I mean, we got a pattern going here, and it's not a very good pattern. Ditch her or ditch him. Call somebody else. Does that make sense to everybody? That's what I mean when I say don't pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they do. And what I love, what I absolutely adore, I'll recommend this to you, is when they get back to you 5 days later. You understand you're calling to present a candidate. You leave a message, 24 hours later, leave another message, and now 5 days later, they get back to you. What are you going to say? Let me make a suggestion. It's John Wilson calling for you. Yes, John, glad you called. I'll tell you, the reason I called you is after we spoke, we went out and did a darned extensive search. We went through a number of the candidates that we had. We identified a number of others. We called them. And I called to present quite an exceptional candidate. This individual, and build it up, this individual has got 5 years of good accounting experience, example, with a major Big 8 public accounting firm. He's got his master's degree in taxation. He's certified and sat for his CPA and passed the first time out. He's got strong background in exactly the kind of tax work you're looking for, and Bob, the man, is only earning $24,000 a year. What's he going to say? He's going to say, terrific, when can we see this guy? Well, Bob, as I've indicated, we called, we went out, we tracked this person down, but I called and you didn't get back to me, so I naturally assumed the position was filled. We've sent him out to another firm, I don't mind saying a fairly good-sized competitor of yours, and it looks very much as though an offer will be extended. By the way, how are you doing, Mary, on filling that position? Pause. Now, what do you think he's going to say? He's going to say, well, wait, when can we see this guy? Again, we went out, we identified him for you, but I did call to present him to you. I missed you for some reason. I called a second time, and I assumed the position was filled. We don't feel it's fair to create competition for our own clients. It looks very much as though an offer will be extended. Should that not be the case, I'll certainly get back and let you know. May I ask, how are you doing on filling the position? Oh, it's still open. Oh, Bruce, why didn't you get back to me then? Pause. Make him bleed. Make him hurt for this candidate. But the candidate's just simply not available, and what could I do? Everybody follow that thought process. Don't present the candidate. If he gets back to you 5 days later and you say, ah, yes, and bang, present the candidate that you had intended to present, what message are you sending? You're letting him know that behavior is acceptable. That behavior is not acceptable. It is not, at least not to me, and you ought to make him know about it. Now, you can do that in one of two ways. You can give him a little lecture, but that's not going to work. Try a little differently. Make him hurt for the candidate, and he's not available. Let me ask, if you did something like that, and then you called another time to present a candidate, say 2 days later, Ken, do you think he'd get back to you pretty quickly? I think he'd get back to you real quickly. That, to me, is the proper attitude to take, and that's how you, note, enhance the likelihood of a return call with this, I'll make a deal with you, and if he doesn't get back to you, but 5 days later, that's how he does it. Don't chase these people. If he doesn't get back to you, not once but twice, walk away. Walk away. 16th, the interviewing process. How many interviews? Where will these take place, if applicable? If you think it's possibly going to entail an out-of-town trip, you should ask. If it's not going to, of course, you leave it out. With whom will he be meeting? If tests are relevant in your industry, then it's fair to say, are there any tests? In some industries, there are no tests, and you can leave them out, but if so, are there any tests? And what kinds of tests? And finally, a piece of information I think you'll find very worthwhile. From the point of the first interview to the point of the offer, how long, Tom, would you anticipate that it will be? This provides you with some terrific information in ways that are not quite obvious when you look at it. One answer, of course, is if it is an inordinately long period of time, you may wish to discard the client based on that. That's possible. If it is going to be an inordinately long period of time and you still wish to proceed, reasonably you should let the candidate know, just so he'll know what's going on. But perhaps the most important information is it tells you when to pull the candidate away. Now, when I say pulling the candidate away, this may take some explanation with some of the newer people. It's an axiom in our business. Time kills deals. Everybody's heard that, and that's true. Time kills deals. Within the parameters of normality, you're proceeding. However, once you get past the normal parameters of time, the more time you take, the less your chances of filling that search. Everybody understand what I'm talking about? Therefore, in an attempt to speed up the process, you may wish to pull the candidate away. You may wish to do so. Now, there are different kinds of pull-aways. However, they all embody, bluntly, some degree of a threat. What kind of a threat? Different kinds. You might want to say, Bernie, you understand you got a nice wife and kids. I sure hate to see anything happen to them. Well, that'll work, all right? On the other hand, you might want to use a different pull-away. Generally, the type of threat that you're using implies the possible loss of the candidate to get the placement sped up. Now, you can use the pull-away that you want. However, I suggest that any kind of pull-away, and I'll give you an example, must embody the following two areas. One, you must set a specific time. You cannot broadly say, unless you move rapidly, this candidate may be gone. That's too nonspecific. Secondly, you can't be the bad guy. You don't want to put yourself in that position. Now, if you are utilizing pull-aways, other than what I'm going to say, that's perfectly fine. But just keep in mind, a good pull-away embodies those two qualities, and you might kind of cross-reference what you're doing. What kind of pull-away do you use? Well, first of all, when do you pull the candidate away? Because you understand what happens here. If you make the mistake of pulling a candidate away too early, you'll irritate the client, which I'm perfectly willing to do, but the point is, it won't work. It won't work. Some things take a certain amount of time. You can go out there and you can plant a head of lettuce and you can run out there and set up sun lamps at night and stick fertilizer in the ground and water them 27 times a day. It's still going to take you 6 weeks for a head of lettuce. That's the way it goes. The other direction is, if you pull the candidate away too late, you are reducing your chances because you should have sped them up earlier. Everybody follow that thought process. Without the question of, from the point of the first interview to the point of the offer, how long would you anticipate it will be? Without that piece of information, when will you pull the candidate away? You don't know. Answer, when the time frame has gone measurably past the answer to the question. Example, let's assume you said from the point of the first interview point of an offer, how long? And the answer was 4 weeks. Now, you may not like 4 weeks, but you decide to work on it. It's 3 weeks into the search process. Since he met the candidate, no offer's been extended. Should you pull the candidate away? No. No. They told you 4 weeks. If you pull the candidate away, it probably won't work. Now it gets to be 5 weeks. Should you pull that candidate away? Yes. Yes, you must, because it has gone measurably past the answer to our pull-away question. Does this make sense? Without that question, you don't know when to pull it away. How do you pull it away? Well, here's what I do. Let's say it's 5 weeks. Call the person up. How are you doing relative to Debbie Winchell? Well, we're still giving it some thought, and it's still in the works, and it's gone past our 4-week period of time. Okay, look, Tom, we've got a problem, and I'll tell you what it is. We went out and we found Debbie Winchell for you. She's your candidate. There'd be no way in the world I'd submit her anywhere else left to my own devices. But I'll tell you what the problem is. I think you know these candidates are in high demand. It's a talent-short market for someone like that. Our president, Mr. Bauer, stating the name of your president, still works a few old-line retainer accounts. One of his accounts is looking for somebody with just this background. Now, make no mistake, we went and found this person for you. There'd be no way in the world I'd send her anywhere else. But I'm having a heck of a time justifying to Mr. Bauer why, when you interviewed this candidate 5 weeks ago and still haven't proceeded to the point of an offer, I'm not letting him send the candidate out to his old line retainer account. Look, I'll tell you what I can do. I've got a meeting tomorrow with Mrs. Fitzpatrick. I'll duck it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll claim I got a broken arm or I got a flu. I mean, I'll get out of it somehow, and because I won't go anywhere with it. But if I don't hear from you by, say, Monday, then I'll have no option except to let Mr. Bauer submit that candidate. But somehow or other, I don't know how, I'll duck and I'll hold him off till Monday. Can we do that? I mean, is that fair enough? Can we get something done by then? Now look at that pull away. 1, it gives him a specific date. You move by Monday, Jack, or she's gone. 2, who's the bad guy? Not you, quite the contrary. You're ducking your boss, claiming you got a flu or a dental appointment or something like that, just so you can avoid allowing this candidate to be sent somewhere else. Clearly, you're on the side of the client and almost against the president. Everybody follow that thought process. That's a pretty good pull away so far as I'm concerned. Now, it is the mark of experience, I'll tell you straightforwardly. No new person will believe this. It's the mark of experience to know that if they say, hey, look, George, you send him where you want to send him, you haven't lost beans. They would not have hired that candidate. You lost absolutely nothing. Experienced people believe that. New people say, wait, Steve, now look, maybe it's only a 10% chance, but 10% is better than 0, right? Wrong. It wasn't a 10% chance. It was a 0% chance. You've just moved them or got rid of them, one or the other. But without that question, you don't know when to pull them away. 17th is the compensation appropriate to the credentials. Or are they looking for a Cadillac at a Chevrolet price? Won't happen. We're not magicians. We reflect the market. Is the compensation appropriate to the credentials? 18th, does the company have a good track record of growth? This is imperative, and it is surprising to me how few firms in our industry ask these questions. The faster the track record of growth, the more likely any person is to move up, and the less likely any person is to be laid off. Both of those go along with a faster track record of growth. And for goodness sakes, don't think this only applies in professional. It applies just as strongly in the office support area. Interesting book called Having It All by Helen Gurley Brown. A really scandalous book, covers some really terrible things. However, amongst other things, she tells about how she started off as a secretary and moved upwards into eventually the head of public relations for a Fortune 500 company, simply on the basis that whenever something needed to be done and it wasn't being done, she just did it. She just did it. Somebody would say, here's what our company has done. Boy, it'd be nice if the TV stations knew about this. She picked up the phone, she called. Boy, here's what our company's done. Boy, it'd be kind of an interesting thing from a PR standpoint. She sat down, wrote it out, sent it to the newspapers. And gradually, just by reaching out and doing more and more and more, eventually I started paying her for what she was doing. That kind of a growth can only be achieved within a fast-growing firm. In a slow-growing firm, boy, something needs to be done. It's done instantly by 9 people. They're jumping on it to try to look busy. The faster the growth, the more rapidly a person is going to go upwards. And that applies not only to what I will term professional, it applies equally to the office support, or, as it's now starting to be known, the executive support area. Growth is an extreme positive. It is imperative to ask about it. 19th, is there an attractive career path? Is there an alternate career path? If the person does well, where can they go? Now, I understand that a lot of potential clients will say to you that there is no upward growth possible, that we're looking for a career secretary, we're looking for a career engineer, we're looking for a career programmer, career anything. Maybe true, probably not. If you simply buy, quote, career secretary, career bookkeeper, career accountant, good chance you lose. Let's talk about how you can push past that to find out a career possibility that they haven't told you about. Career secretary, as an example. Bob, I understand. If the person does a fine job, where can she reasonably expect to go? Steve, again, it's a career secretary position. Okay, fine. Let me ask you something, Dave. How long have you been with your firm? Me personally, 8 years. Okay. During that time, a second, how many secretaries have you seen employed within your company? My gosh, hundreds. Okay, has there been anyone with your firm that started as a secretary, but she's not a secretary anymore? Now pause, he's going to repeat this back to you. Started with our firm as a secretary, but she's not a secretary anymore. Right, is there anybody within your organization that's doing some job, not a secretarial position, but she started as a secretary? Can you think of anybody? Well, there's Debbie. Well, tell me about Debbie. Well, Debbie started off as a secretary, and as it happened, she was a secretary of the sales manager. And, you know, she did a pretty nice job, and customers started calling on in, and as it was her job to do, she'd start talking to the customers. And she did talk to the customers and did a very nice job and started mentioning other products that we had available besides what they were specifically asking about, and kind of directing them, and kind of started working, I guess, you know, almost an order desk type situation. And then she was reading books on selling, as it happens, and she wanted to have a couple of accounts and go out and call on a few accounts, and we let her go out, and she did a nice job. And then she started going out and calling some accounts, and now she's one of our best salespeople. Really? Yeah. What does one of your best salespeople earn? Well, gee, you know, I guess Debbie's probably, I think she's number 3. Maybe they'd earn upper 40s or so. Interesting. What did she start out at? Well, back then, I guess she probably started at $15,000 a year as a guess. How long ago was this? 5 years ago. So in the last 5 years, she's basically tripled her income. Yeah, I guess she has. Okay, is there anybody else with your firm that's still with your firm, started as a secretary, but she's not a secretary anymore? Well, there's Linda. Well, tell me about Linda. Well, Linda started off as a secretary in our accounting department, and part of her job was kind of to input, to do just kind of basic inputting on the computer, and I guess what you might call a little bit of mild bookkeeping, and she started to do a little bit more bookkeeping, and she wanted to take bookkeeping courses, and we obviously pay for all business-related courses, and she got to be a pretty good bookkeeper, and she started doing a little bit of accounting work and a little bit more, and she kind of worked into a junior accounting. And in this state, if you have 2 years of private accounting experience, you can sit for your CPA exam. And she sat for it, and she passed it first time out, and now she's one of our better accountants. She is, yeah. What would one of your better accountants earn? Gosh, I guess maybe 32, 34,000. What do you think Linda started out at? Well, back then, I guess secretary, maybe 12, 13,000. How long ago was this she started? Oh, I guess about probably 4 years ago. So she pretty close to tripled her income in the last 4 years. Yeah, she did. Interesting. She kind of happier where she is? Yeah. Okay, fine. Well, I sure hope that when you do interview the candidate, that you'll mention Debbie and Linda. You will, won't you? Oh, yeah, we will. We'll mention that. I know we will, because I'm going to coach the candidate to ask about this. But this started off as a career secretary position. And that same hypothesis can follow through if you're talking career accountant, career programmer, career engineer, career salesman. Don't make the assumption that because that's what he says, that's the way it is. All you need is one Debbie or one Linda as an example that has gone from here to here, and it could even be with a different company. It doesn't even have to be within the same company, and now you've got something you can really sell in terms of potential if you just push past that career this or that. Okay, and 20thly and finally, I think we can say, practically speaking, will they pay your fee? That does have some minor significance to it. Generally, by the way, I would bring up fee at the end. I think it's axiomatic in selling that you bring up price. I'm talking sales axioms when the interest level is at its peak. Probably that's going to be at the end of the search assignment rather than at the beginning. Selecting the search assignment properly, well, is imperative. It is the foundation of all we do. Without this, you've got a genuine problem on your hands and probably won't make a lot of money out of this situation. With this, all else becomes possible. Now, a couple of comments need to be made. One, do not compromise. Fill out the entire search assignment. Don't shortcut the form. For you to make the mistake of thinking, well, it may not be an A, but I'll work on it anyway, is a clear mistake. You're much better off treating the B's as what they are. Go through the files. If nobody's there, drop it. Don't recruit on a B. An A, you test the search assignment. You will find an explanation of how to test on my video program book, More Business. And if it is tested properly, then you go ahead and cover. That's the section that you follow up on. Don't compromise. A second comment, there is no such thing as a Class A company. There are certainly Class A search assignments from existing clients. That's an ideal combination. But don't make the assumption of thinking that because it is a client who's hired from you before, that's an automatic A. That's not true. An existing client could call and give you 3 searches. One's an A, one's a B, one's a Q. And you have to treat them as an A, as a B, and as a Q. Don't make the assumption of shortcutting the form or not asking all the questions or not selecting properly simply because they've hired from you before.
Steve, there was one question that I would like to ask, and that is that the process that you've just outlined to take a good job order, a complete job order, seems rather involved. And so my question would be, is just how long does it take to take a good job order?
Okay, let me answer that in 2 ways. One is terminology. Search assignment. Search assignment. Your judgment. I'm not trying to change the way you do business, but if you are recruiting, I suggest that you are an executive search consultant and that you take search assignments. Now, and they are candidates, not applicants. Now, simply an observation, but I point out to you, Steve, we're only dealing with words. Our business is words. That is our business. We're dealing with images. We're dealing with perceptions. Doctors don't call themselves doctors within their own ranks. They call themselves physicians. Lawyers don't call themselves lawyers. They call themselves attorneys. Others of us call them other things. Samuel Johnson once said that he had no wish to speak ill of any man behind his back, but he believed the gentleman was an attorney. In any case, simply an observation in terms of your terminology. To answer your question, however, I would say as a rough rule of thumb, to take a complete search assignment, we're probably talking 12 to 15 minutes. Might even be 10 to 12 minutes. Now, I give you that range because obviously there's a big difference between taking a search on a chief executive officer or MIS director and taking a search for a bookkeeper or perhaps a city order desk person. There's a difference that you will have to get into, a little bit more complex. But range 12 to 15 minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Now, a couple of questions occur. Most of the time, you will take a lot less time than that, most of the time, as follows. 1, the order of the questions. This is critical. Eliminative questions up front. Those questions that would eliminate a client as an A or a B, up front. Example, I know of an extensive job order form, and boy, it's a job order form. And you go through it, and there's a lot, tell me about the backgrounds of the last 46 people that you hired, or whatever it may be, and it goes through lots of questions. And then at the very end, the last question on this form is, what other sources are you pursuing to fill this position? Now you think about that. You look at that form one time, and you know this person never really recruited in his life, because he's asking all these questions and questions and questions, and then way at the end, what other sources are you pursuing to fill this position? What if the answer is we're registered with 97 search firms and running ads in 212 newspapers, and you're going, God, my stomach hurts. I mean, you want a waste of time? That's a waste of time. The first questions you should ask should not be, what do you want the person to do? What are the scope of his responsibility? What are his background? That's not the questions. The first questions that you should ask would be, why is the position open? How long has the position been open? Have you looked internally? Do you have any candidates in contention? And so forth. Because if the answer to that is not correct, good golly, do you care about the rest of it? The order will make it a lot shorter for you. However, within that context, you're right. Someone who has been used to the traditional old-style job order form, many of which are 3x5 or 5x8 in size, and part of that is APF, EPF, or split, may find that you're asking a lot of questions. You will need to keep the person on the phone, and the way you do that is through a series of, as always, rebuttals. Let me walk you through what I will term rebuttals to, gee, you're taking a lot of time. First rebuttal is called a preemptive rebuttal. Preemptive defines it, preemptive before the fact. Before this person ever says, gee, you're asking a fair amount of questions here, it will be readily evident in his voice that he's getting a little bit impatient. The answers will be shorter, he'll volunteer less information, the tone will be a little bit clipped. Jump in at that point with a preemptive rebuttal, which is simply as follows. Bob, I understand that we're asking a good deal of questions here. I can only assure you, the better we know your firm and what it is you're looking for, the better job we'll do of finding you what it is you're looking for. We only have a few moments to go. Please bear with me. And just roll on to whatever the next question on your form may be. And that will reduce. You'll feel it in his voice. He'll say, well, I was wondering about that. Get reduced. It will. And slowly, as you ask more questions, you'll feel this resistance grow a little bit. He may at that point interject. How long is this going to take? Now, we are not saying I've got a meeting in 5 minutes. That's a different story. If that's the case, when should I get back to you? But gee, how long is this going to take? Go to, from that point, the barbershop/hairdresser rebuttal, based on the gender of the person with whom you're speaking. Example, gee, you're asking a lot of questions. How long is this going to take? Are you running short of time? Do you have to go to a meeting? No, it's just this is taking quite a while. Dave, I understand it is, but let me ask you something. If you were to go to a barber, or a female hairdresser, if you were to go to a barber, and he were to say to you, how do you want your hair, short, medium, or long? And you said medium, and then he started cutting. I mean, personally, I get a little bit nervous. I think it's fair to say when you go to a good barber, he'll ask a lot of questions the first time out as to just what you want, and then he'll give you just what you want the first time out. And afterwards, it's just do it again. We're in exactly the same situation right here. We only have to go through this once. Please bear with me. Bang. And then you're back into asking more questions. And if you need to, if this surfaces again, you can go to the your time rebuttal. Your time rebuttal is as follows. Well, I'm Mary asking a lot of questions. I mean, good God, how long is this going to take? I understand that we are. But let me ask you something, Bill. Have you ever spoken with a candidate that you should not have been speaking to begin with? What's he going to say? Never happened to me? Oh, yeah, sure I have. Ken, how long did that take? A lot of time. Diane, how'd that make you feel? Irritated. I don't want that to happen with us. A little bit of extra time taken right now will save us both a whole lot of time down the road. We only have a few moments to go. Please bear with me, and then you're back into your questioning. Rare will be the potential client that won't give you all the information you need after you go through those particular rebuttals. And if he won't, for goodness sakes, a good search assignment form is a nice eliminator all by itself. If he's telling you this is critical and important and urgent, we got to get on this immediately, and he's not willing to take how long? The 10 to 15, the 12 to 15 minutes to give you all the information you need. How serious is he about filling this? How serious is he about you? Let me ask you the same question. Remember the your time rebuttal? You may say, gee whiz, Steve, 10 to 15 minutes is a lot of time. 12 to 15 minutes, holy smokes. One answer, of course, is if you arrange the order properly, it will be less an awful lot of the time. The eliminative questions up front. But the other answer is, have you ever spent time working on a search assignment that you should not have been working on to begin with? How much time did that take? How'd that make you feel? A little bit of extra time taken right now will save us all a whole lot of time down the road. These rebuttals sell like a fiend, but as a minor point, they also happen to be true. Don't compromise on this. Remember the definitions. A Class A search assignment is one on which you will go out and conduct a full-scale recruiting effort, or you would if you had to. A B is one that you submit candidates. You do if the candidate is in the file. And a Q is the classic source company. I suggest to you the time spent here will serve you an awful lot of good. Now, I will make a point. As you select better, you must increase what goes into the funnel. Because what you don't want to do is select yourself down to where there's 2 search assignments a month for you to work on. This is not a very good deal. All right, therefore, a key to what we're talking about is to expand your client base. You've got to get more search assignments. As the quantity increases, as you expand your client base, you can select as well as you want, and there'll still be a lot for you to work on. Your return on investment will be much higher. The concept of expanding your client base is critical. It is not something that is within the scope of what we're covering right now. We simply don't have the time to do so. It is something we teach in our in-house training program extensively. So if you are interested in expanding your client base, feel free to pick up the phone and give me a call at area code 314-991-3177. Call Professional Search Seminars in St. Louis, and we can certainly talk about expanding your client base. This is the beginning. Getting sufficient quantity and selecting down to where what you work on will yield you the better results. And now that we've got our Class A search assignment, what do? We go through our files. If the person's there, submit them. If the person isn't there, our next step, identify and recruit. And we'll cover that on the next tape. Thanks very much.